Paltrocast.
Pleasure to be reconnecting after all these years. The last time I saw Allister, it was kind of the end of the road for the band. We didn't know, hey, they're coming back together and all that. And now it's been a decade or so of being kind of weekend warriors. You did a new record of the old classics like 2 years or so ago. So congratulations on, I don't know, doing things on your own term at a high level.
Thank you.
Yeah. So when did you kind of realize that Allister could be a thing that you do like as a weekend warrior, along the lines of say Warrant? They go, hey, we're playing casinos Friday, Saturday, Sunday, then we go away. That kind of
right. Gamble all of our earnings away in the meantime. I think back in 2007 was kind of the end of 2006, I think was one of the last times I saw you when we were in Japan.
Yeah.
And that was kind of the last tour for the band, because at that time I found out I was going to have a kid, and I had to kind of make a decision, like, should I keep doing this? I don't know if I can then provide for my family and keep playing in a band at the same time. Ultimately I just decided I don't think I'll be able to do that. And I wanted to be home and be with, my then girlfriend at the time, and my son. And so I kind of made the decision, like, look, I need to put this band on hold for a little bit. I need to kind of put things on pause. And so we did. And then it just kind of over time developed into this thing, like you said, where we can just kind of be weekend warriors. And it actually worked out for the best, because we can just do music now on our own time. And in a way, it actually makes it, I think, a little more rewarding for us. And we can kind of appreciate what we had and what we currently have even more so, I think, than we did maybe before.
Yeah, it has to be a relief to not be on the road 200 to 300 days a year like you were, because I remember in the early 2000s, it was just Allister going from tour to tour to tour to tour. A lot of these shows where you're the first or second of four bands, so you're not even playing to the people who want to see you. And now you're playing to the people who want to see you.
Yeah, and it's funny too, like I think about this a lot now, because it's been 15 years or so since we toured full time, right? And I'm like, man, I'm 44. I couldn't do that anymore. And then I look at bands like Metallica, right, who just put out a new record, and they're touring for 2 years. Like, their world tour is going to last for 2 years. Granted, it's a little bit different. They're probably not sleeping on floors. They probably have nice hotel rooms and buses all the time. But, the idea is kind of the same. Like, I just don't know if I could do that full time anymore, just being a little bit older. And putting forth that commitment. And that's what's cool, is that now we can do that in chunks of like a week, right? Or maybe 10 days or 2 weeks here or a week there, or just a weekend, and I think that's actually pretty fun.
Metallica has one thing that's better than you'd think it would be, and one thing that's worse than you think it'd be, that I don't think the average person knows. The better is, what I've heard is they have like boxing robes that when they come off stage, people put that on them. I've heard that's totally true. But a lot of these gigs they do as runners. Do you know that term, runner?
I mean, I know the term. In what context?
It's basically like, get off the stage, run to the van. You're going to the airport. You're getting out of here. So
okay.
I've seen that in riders. Like, this is a runner. And you go, oh. Like Van Halen on their last tour, it was like Dave Lee Roth is sticking around, Eddie and the Van Halen's runner. And you got to think that's got to be tiring and crazy.
Yeah.
That even though they're flying private and all that, that high stress police escort thing you got to deal with, that raises the heart level a little bit.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, think about it. Like, when I come off stage, like, my adrenaline has just been going for 45 minutes or an hour. Like, I just need to sit down and relax. Like, I don't want to keep running to an airplane. Like, even if I have my own private bed or my own private jet or whatever, I just want to relax for like 30 minutes. Just give me 30 minutes just to kind of like calm down, maybe have a beer or something.
Yeah, I can't imagine the adrenaline levels of, you just played a stadium, you're now rushing to another place, and then you're flying, because flying doesn't put most people at ease.
No, no, definitely not.
So, and then they're doing that for 2 years, and then they wonder why they wind up in rehab after the tour.
Yeah, right.
I don't know.
I can't quite figure it out.
But this isn't the Metallica interview. This is the Tim interview.
Yes, it is. Yes.
So it's interesting to see that Allister, broke up and got more popular. That's not that's
It
not
is, yeah.
exactly the average thing where you
No,
became
it's
a
not.
legacy band.
Yeah, it's kind of weird, but I think part of it sort of has to do with kind of that legacy of the early 2000s, right? A lot of those bands now are coming back and doing 20-year reunion tours, or like, whatever the case happens to be. And we are kind of lumped into that category because we were one of those bands and we were around at that time. So I think the whole thing kind of benefits us in the long run. It benefits us now because we can go play. We played Baltimore and Pittsburgh, and like 400 or 500 people are showing up. And I mean, for us who don't play regularly, that's really fucking rad. Like, that's very cool for us.
Yeah, there were years where maybe your headline hometown show was 500 people
Yeah.
coming, and now it's
Yeah.
in a city where you had no roots or anything like that.
Mm-hmm.
So
Yeah.
all that said, it's also great to see that the fan base in Japan has sustained long term. So it's pretty much festival gig, club gig, or Japan. That's what I see these days from Allister.
Pretty much. Yeah. That's almost exactly it. Yeah. And I mean, those Japan dates are always the best, right? Because like you said, like for whatever reason, we can go over and play Japan and we can do 1,500 people a night, like in small clubs. And we played, what was it? Summer Sonic a couple of years ago, and there were like 11,000 people watching us play. Like that was really cool. Like we're lucky enough to have the opportunity to go over to Japan and play shows like that. And it's pretty cool.
Do you know what the future of Allister looks like, or is it really week by week, month by month? You see what comes in.
It's kind of month by month, because more or less with the exception of Scotty, like we all have full-time regular jobs. And so it's a little more difficult for us to find the time to take off of work, find the time where our families aren't super busy doing things where we can afford to leave them for a week or two or whatever the case happens to be. And Scotty lives full-time in Japan now. So like getting him on a schedule with us is tricky too. So the stars really kind of have to align for us to be able to get ourselves into a position where we're going to know 3 or 4 months ahead of time where we can plan something that will all be there. We all have the time off. We can all do these shows and see if we can get it to work. But I mean, I think we have plans to do some small touring. We just don't know when that's going to be. We also have some plans we've been kind of talking about doing a new record or maybe a potential new EP. But again, we don't know what that looks like.
Yeah.
I think technology has afforded us the opportunity now to kind of do things in our home studios and still make it sound really good, which is very cool. And we're very fortunate for that. But we just kind of have to see what everyone's schedule looks like.
You don't have to say the name of it if you do and you want to keep it quiet, but do you have a local bar band or a local group that you play with in town?
I do. There's another band that I play with called Hot Alice. And we're just kind of a rock and roll band. Like it's similar to Allister, but it's a little more rock and roll, maybe a little more creative in terms of like tonal qualities. We'll like use some effects pedals here and there. Allister is like, it's the Ramones. It's just straight 3-chord punk rock. Hot Alice is a little bit different, but all of the guys in Hot Alice live within 15 minutes of me. And so we get together, probably every other weekend and practice, and we try to play shows. Shows these days are a little hard to come by, again, just because our schedules are a little bit different.
Right.
But we have all the songs for a record. We're just trying to sort out when we're going to record that. So that certainly keeps me busy too.
That's great to hear, but there's no like on the hush bar band. And I ask that because a lot of people you speak with randomly have that like, oh yeah, once every 2 months we do this gig, but we don't like to say what it's called. We're terrible and we don't practice. You don't have one.
Right, we're like a Flaming Lips cover band or something. No, I do not have an undisclosed bar band, but if I do, I will definitely be the first to let you know so that you can let everybody else know. Not the name of it, but we can give secret hints.
I mean, the second Metallica reference of this conversation, Bob Rock, their producer who did all those Motley Crue records and David Lee Roth and all that, he supposedly if you're in Hawaii, like every Wednesday, his country band played at some bar.
Is that
And
right?
yeah, you
Hmm.
find out about those things. Like Metallica for a while, I think they had a band where James and Lars changed instruments, and they're called Spastic Children.
Interesting. And like, I mean, it's kind of just on a whim you catch those things, right? You have to just kind of be there the day of. It's not really something you can find out about. And that's what kind of makes it very cool.
No, I wonder if the psychology of the whole thing is everything I do is so successful. I have to do something to eat dirt to
Right.
remind me of why I do this, and that's what
Keep me
that
at least a little humble, right?
exactly. So your life, to kind of recap, is there's Hot Alice, there's Allister, there's the family life, there's the work kind of stuff. That sounds like the least boring suburban person. I say that because when you go to the kids' birthday parties and you have to make small talk about like, oh, what are you doing this weekend? And the best that they can muster up, a lot of the dads, is like their fantasy football team, how they're doing.
Right.
Your kind of thing is, well, I got to go to Japan in a couple of weeks. Oh, what for? Business trip? Kind of. I'm gonna play it.
Yeah, I play rock and roll on the weekends, and we're moderately successful in other countries. No, it is kind of funny though. Like, so the company that I work for, we have a parent company who's actually, our parent company is Japanese, and so the home office is in Tokyo. And the last time I was there, like in 2019 for that Summer Sonic Festival, I walked over and kind of like took a picture with our home office, headquarters or whatever, with the building. And I didn't tell anybody that I was going to do it. And when I got back, like I showed a couple of people, and they're like, "Is that our home office? That's so cool! You got to go see it." I was like, "Well, I just walked around outside," and it's such a weird thing because like people that aren't in the industry that we are, they don't really quite understand what it's like, so they automatically think you're playing in stadiums, right? And I suppose that on that particular show we kind of were, but normally, we're just playing in rock and roll clubs. But they think it's like the biggest deal in the world, and it is a big deal. But I'm also just kind of like, well, this is just what I do. It's what I've done for 25 years, and it's fun for me. So
One of my big obsessions when it comes to Japanese music is finding out the American and British artists that are only huge in Japan and not their own country. Like I remember Soft was one of those bands.
okay.
Do
I don't know
you
if I've
do you
heard
have
of
any
that band.
names that, not to throw them under the bus, but a band that's playing 2 to 12,000 people over there, and that they don't have a record deal in their home country? Like I remember Maynard Plant, who's writing a lot of hits for people. He's
Mhm.
from Canada. He's another one of those where
Okay, man, I don't know. I mean,
I
I
think
can't think of
Crystal
any off the.
Myers. Crystal Myers is like the Avril Lavigne type for Japan.
Okay, yeah, I can't think of any off the top of my head. I mean, it's sort of the position that we're in. I mean, a little bit, it's like we. I mean, we
You
had
were
a
in
little.
Sleepover. I mean,
Well,
you were in a major
well, that's how this
Blizzard.
whole thing started, right? That's how I kind of got back in contact with you, which was really hilarious when I saw that you interviewed Brie Larson, or not Brie.
Scout Taylor Compton. Yeah.
Yeah. Um, I replied back to your tweet, and I was like, wow, we were in the movie together, and that was cool. Like that interview was fantastic. It was
Well,
cool.
that
Like,
movie, not just you, not just Scout, but the music wasn't done by Gabriel Mann, who did the theme
mhm,
to Modern Family and is now this Emmy-winning composer.
yeah,
Was
it's crazy
Sleepover?
because he had brought in a song for us to record for that movie, and we did, but I don't remember if it ever made it onto the soundtrack. I forget.
So that movie was the biggest collection of talent that wasn't used for their best work.
Yeah, for sure.
Jeff
Yeah, it
Garlin, I
was
think, was in that.
Jeff Garlin. Yeah, Steve Carell, Jane Lynch. Yeah, it's crazy, and we didn't get to meet any of them, except for like the kid stars. But the coolest thing for me, and I don't know if this is 100% true, but this is just what we were told. So there's like a couple scenes in the movie where someone was doing like some skateboard tricks or like skateboard stunts, and from what we were told, the skateboard stunt coordinator, was the same guy who worked on Back to the Future. And that is hands down my favorite movie of all time. So I was like, that is pretty cool. Like that was pretty rad.
The last question that I have for you then, tying in that,
Mhm.
Back to the Future, the musical, is going on tour. Are you one of the
I saw
people
that.
that's excited about that or scared about what's going to result?
Boy, I have mixed feelings. I think I probably lean a little more so towards being excited because, like I said, I mean, it's hands down like my favorite movie ever. And I have a little bit of a small obsession with it. And I would want to probably see anything related to Back to the Future. And I have a feeling they will do a good job with it. So I am definitely going to see it at some point. I just don't know when.
Follow up, then last question. Back to the Future 2 is better than Back to the Future 1, correct?
No, incorrect. But Back to the Future 3 is better than Back to the Future 2.
That is the first time I've ever heard anyone say that. That is a hot take. So I'm looking forward to your Back to the Future podcast.
You know what? That's not a bad idea. I probably should start one. Yeah, that's a good idea. Maybe I
Think
will.
of all the puns of going back in time that you can work with for the title.
That's true. Yeah, and I can work into my own career for sure.
So that whatever city Allister is in, you either look for the landmarks or the people related to Back to the
Yes.
Future. And such as professional wrestler Kushida, who had the Back to the Future gimmick in his WWE career.
Oh, is that right? Oh, I don't think I knew that. I don't think I ever saw that.
When we hang up, look up the tag team called the Time Splitters.
Okay, I will. Yes, absolutely.
Paltrocast.